Welcome back to the Weekend Warrior Show Recap Podcast. I'm TyJon, sitting down with good friend Aaron Newsome. New friend Aaron Newsome, I guess, right? We haven't known each other for super long, but
only a couple months.
Yeah, but it's been interesting to kind of follow your progression here, and I'm excited to have you in. So I met you. I started running an open mic at Alive Again in Pontiac, and I saw you play, and I was like, I gotta get you out as much as possible because I just thought you were fantastic, and so I'm really happy to kind of see you really swinging for stuff and really getting into it, and so how long have you been playing?
Like 4 people and doing shows and stuff since like November,
right?
When we met
around the same time, right?
Yeah. So, but I've been doing music since like high school.
So you're saying you did like musicals and stuff?
I was in choir.
I gotcha.
Like my senior year, and I didn't really do anything besides choir. I didn't really do anything as far as like musical theater or anything performance-wise in front of people is concerned solo until like college. But I've always known I like to sing. And be like within the music, happenings of whatever's going on. And so that was sort of just like a stepping stone into theater in college and then into doing what I'm doing now.
Well, that's awesome. And you've been playing guitar how long?
I've been playing guitar since my junior year of college.
So not very long.
Really not very long.
But no. I mean, most people probably can tell that by watching it, and that's pretty impressive. You can tell that you really have focused pretty hard on it to get better, and I think that especially this last weekend, you do some of those.
I know.
Crazy. You just get so used to playing.
Yeah.
It becomes kind of second nature.
Yeah.
But so let's talk about this last weekend because. That's kind of why I wanted to have you.
It was
a
big one.
Yeah,
it was the first one, but it was a big one.
That's what I mean. Like it was that's always like a big stamp, It's a big like rite of passage. I think you have to do those crazy show days, and so you had them. Let's just walk through the number and where and everything first.
Yeah. So, well, it was the Red Carpet Corridor in Pontiac. And
66,
then Route 66 Red Carpet Corridor. Thanks to everybody who came out.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people from a lot of states too.
Right.
The guest house, the 202 guest house, was having their own separate weekend, and so they had some concerts, and they had a lot of people come in who just because they were there also went to the stuff that was going on the weekend. So it was nice to have everybody out there. But I had 5 shows in 2 days. And I got to do some songs with people that I've been wanting to for a while, and had some friends come down that I was able to do some stuff with. But I started Saturday morning, first ever morning show that I've ever done, bright and early, 8 o'clock.
I'm sure your voice fares a little better than mine in the morning, but morning shows are usually pretty brutal for me just to get warmed up and kind of moving. But it's like that second hour I'm usually fine, but that first hour I pretty much pick the easiest songs I can sing.
That's sort of what my attack was. I mean, I've done morning stuff before, like I said, like college, musical theater. The way we would do it, we'd have a Thursday, Friday, Saturday run, but we'd have our practice shows Thursday morning and Friday morning for grade schoolers who would come in. So we'd be belting out these musical theater numbers, and at 7:30 in the morning was opening, and I just had to, do it.
Did you all have like an extensive warm-up program, or did you just jump in like theater, the stuff you're talking about?
His warm-up was like, be here and make sure you have something so I don't have to pick you up off stage after you faint. That was Prof C, thank you for that. No, there was not really like a warm-up. We made sure that we, did what we needed to on our own, but even, no, not really at all.
It's just not the same. Even if you do your full warm-up that you would normally do for
you still haven't talked to people for 8 hours.
Yeah,
you still haven't got that.
It's really hard sometimes. I mean, some days I'll wake up and I'm still kind of warmed up from the show the night before, which I always think is weird because, I slept 6-7 hours or something.
That was, I think,
Sometimes
sort of what
2.
happened to me Sunday morning from what I did Saturday. But, yeah, Saturday, 8 a.m. at Acres Inn, restaurant here in Pontiac, was awesome for being a first show. The weather was perfect. with it being so early, I was a little bit worried. Not a lot of people showing up, with it being outside too. People are gonna be inside, but there was quite a bit of foot traffic. I think I sounded good. I'm sure I sounded good.
Right.
But yeah, I started with some of those more, I don't know, ballady songs that I have. Really, I mean, if you've heard me sing, if you haven't heard me sing, I just have sort of like a raspy, deep, like powerful
I think,
soul
is
type
a definite adjective.
It's got like a Chris Stapleton growl, Jelly Roll type of growl.
It can get there for sure.
So some of those songs have that I was like, all right, I'm gonna push those to the back end of my playlist.
Those definitely are on the end, the tail end.
There are a couple things that I've written that are good for the. All right, I'm not gonna be afraid.
I pretty much have at least 2 songs that I do every time when I start a show. Almost, not every time, but most of the time, because those ones I feel like I'll do those same 2. I know that they're easy enough for me to sing that even if I'm not warmed up, they kind of warm me up.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're solid songs. I don't want to call them warm-up songs, but they kind of are, you know, like for my voice. And I feel like it kind of allows me to feel out the room, feel out the sound, feel out the vibe of everything. Because, I mean, there's so many X factors when you're singing. Because with the sound system is obviously a big, if you're different sound system than you're used to, different room, even if it's the same sound system that you bring everywhere.
That was a big thing. I forgot, like, oh, this is different than the bar I'm playing it tonight, and the bar I'm playing it tonight needs a whole lot more volume than what. And then it's like Sunday morning, I'm blowing the windows off the place because I forgot to turn it down from the bar. So that was always the fun part of, like, all right, cool, I get to be my sound guy. Because I haven't been able to play around with those really a lot, because I've either played at the house where I don't need to bring it, or I play it with Obies, and it's the same setting, or my practice room, and I have a setting for that. But and I play with you, and you have everything set up, and so it was like cool to be able to. I had some cool shows, and the first time doing like really extensive. Extensive
kind of
work
jumping into
in the
weekend. Fire to an extent.
But I also
in
got
more ways than one, I would say.
Oh, I earned my stripes this weekend, I would say. But it was cool to be able to, like, okay, this needs to go up, this needs to go down. I haven't been able to use this much, but in this space I can. So, experimenting with things like that too was super cool.
And it's just like every atmosphere is different. But then, so there's room difference, there's different sound system, different acoustics in every room, obviously different sizes of the room. And then there's also, I'm a big X factor, you're a big X factor. So did you sleep enough? Are you hydrated? Are you warmed? All these things. Have you been talking all day? If you've been talking all day, a lot of times easier. Do you have a little head cold? Do you have allergy? All these little tiny things. And even just your brain, like if your brain, for me, I shouldn't speak for both of us, but if your brain's a little foggy, it's like sometimes then it's even hard to sing. It has nothing to do with, because you're just not doing it right.
I am a much healthier person when I know I have a show.
Oh, me too.
And it's like oh, what are you doing, today? And I'm not doing anything. And I'm like, I'm sitting around. I'm not talking to anybody. I'm gonna drink only caffeine and have some dairy and just feel sad. And it's like, oh, you have a show today? It's like, oh, I'm waking up early. I'm talking to everybody. I'm drinking 6 gallons of water. It's great. And you kind of have to be. Like, there's not really a choice. And I think that sometimes that can be daunting to people when they first get into kind of doing this, is like, I have to change who I am. I have to change my routine. It's like
definitely. But then because of the health X factor, I think like if you're not like strict on that, and even if you are strict, you're still gonna have days that aren't gonna go right.
Oh yeah.
And when it's all on you as the performer, like when you book the show, they're paying you. You have to do your own sound, all that stuff. It's a lot of weight sometimes to hold on yourself. And I think some of the musicians I think struggle with that, because it's like,
it's daunting.
There's no like, you could cancel a show, but it doesn't feel right. It feels like it's the wrong move always.
Yeah.
And if you're somebody that does it for a living, you you really don't have that option.
Yeah.
But you don't. I mean, obviously, you don't want to build that reputation as a musician who always cancels just because your voice is a little rough from last night, or you got a little head cold. You pretty much just got to do it. But in doing all that stuff, I feel like you learn how to bob and weave around all that stuff when that happens. It's like you learn how to troubleshoot those weird things, as well as just the sound in general. It's like, why some nights you'll be playing and you'll be like, why does this not sound right? And you just keep at it, keep trying. Sometimes you give up. I'm not gonna say I always hunt down the problem, but I mean, you have a lot of those nights where you're just chasing it, like what's going on here? Why does it sound funny? And then you finally like get it and you crack it, and
you mean like in a song?
No, well, you know, like
or
I'm
just like
I'm
through
saying
the night.
Kind of through the night, but like you're singing a song and it just doesn't feel right and doesn't sound right. You're listening and performing at the same time, which is weird. You're not, once you get it dialed in and everything's sounded good, you can kind of just perform, and that's great.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't get that right away. Sometimes that'll be like 20 minutes of like, maybe the vocals just need less bass, or maybe the guitar just needs to come down, maybe everything needs to come up. Like,
and maybe it's not the sound.
Right.
Maybe I'm the problem.
Yeah. And I think those tend to be the nights that it's just like a big question mark the whole night, where you're constantly trying to figure out why. And then it's like, if it's you, it's
and
like...
if that gets you in the first part of your set, there's no having a good night after that.
I mean, I've gotten there. It's hard. It's harder. It's harder for sure. But I think once you... Because you either just give in and you're like... a lot of times what I end up doing those nights is like, I will just play a bunch of covers that I know everybody will like. Because even if my voice is a little off, it's like... they'll still the crowd knows the song at least, and knows what I'm trying to do, which might be bad, I guess, if they know what the song really sounds like and I'm trying to sing it. Yeah,
you should have stuck with the other stuff you were doing, fella. Right. Let me tell you, you thought you weren't doing.
I should do all originals that they've never heard before, so they can't compare it to the. But yeah, so I think I started this by saying I do the same two songs, and that first set, it's like a outline I have pretty much, depending on whether it's mostly originals, mostly covers, or both, hybrid. I go down a little bit different avenues, but it's like that first hour a lot. Sometimes it's 3-4 hour set. That whole first hour is just kind of getting the wheels turning, feeling it the right way. You're a little anxious still. Usually once you take a break and you come back to it, I mean, it's crazy like how your whole mindset will change just for like taking a breather.
Oh yeah.
Because a lot of times you set up almost right till the fact that you have to perform.
Yeah.
And you're like sweating from that, and then you're trying to get it to sound right, and everybody, I've had a lot of shows recently where I'm setting everything up and doing sound check while there's a full audience, which that's not very fun either. I mean, they don't probably care, but it's just, you're not going to sound your best that first strum, that first note you're singing, because I mean, you might not be as warmed up and the sound's not quite right. It's just all a little weird, and if you have a full crowd. But anyway, so I do that first set, especially those first two songs. It's almost like I was having this thought when I was doing sound on Friday night, is like sometimes when I'm doing those first songs, it's almost like I'm tuning myself. You know what I mean? Like it's my voice, my guitar, how am I even just how I'm strumming the guitar, what do my dynamics need to be like, what the sound as well, you're dialing in, and your voice, you're like, am I going flat a lot, am I going sharp a lot, like what's going on here? So you're that whole, and sometimes it takes 2 songs and you're good, which are the best shows usually, is when you just feel good right away. But sometimes it takes 30 minutes, sometimes it takes an hour, sometimes it's the whole set. But
it's well, on Friday you did really good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I like the times when TyJon Charlie is just up there with his
guitar. Right.
I was like, I always like just like acoustic. So is just gonna be.
We're gonna get back into your shows. Let's talk about Friday for a few minutes, because a couple things that were.
Bradley
cool.
is freaking.
I know.
Nuts.
And I'm a huge fan. He won me over immediately just with the sound check. So I got to open, and I did sound at the 202 live again.
Shout out Mike and Steve.
Yeah, for being awesome.
Fantastic weekend,
Always.
fantastic hosts every time.
Just always, yeah. I've been working with them for a long time, and they're doing
great.
An awesome
I
thing.
met them the same night I met you,
Right.
it's like, they always say it to the people that come into the house, is that you come here as friends, you leave as family.
Right.
And they're like, you
Uncle
come here,
Steve.
I'm gonna, we shake hands, but when you're leaving, you're getting a hug.
Right.
And it's like, okay, all right, whatever, man. But it's true. It's
Yeah.
like, there's not been people to come into that place to listen to something, to whether it's an open mic or a concert or one of the benefits that they did, that doesn't keep coming back.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great thing.
It feels like family.
And this Friday is a prime example because you're bringing an upper tier musician that really does most. I mean, he did a couple covers, but mostly original music to Pontiac, which is like,
Unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple bars that people play at and stuff, but usually it's bar bands or bar music where it's like, you might do some originals, but you're doing a lot of covers too. So to have a place like that, and it's just all, those two are just all about supporting anything musical, anything, just getting people together. Like, they're just all
like,
about
I don't even know if there's a cap. Like, I don't even know if there's like a genre of things that they support, because they feel like
just everything.
Yeah. Everything.
All inclusive. And I don't know. Well, as soon as because they did the first open mic night, I wasn't the host, or I wasn't the sound guy or host. And as soon as they did it, or as soon as I saw it, I think Ryan Wolf actually told me about it. And I hit them up and I was like, I'm going to be coming. And then I talked to him that night and was like, if you ever need somebody to help with sound or open or anything like that. But since then, it's been like, we've had constant communication. They're just my friends now,
It's like they just sort of got into my phone somehow, and then we just started this like
and
never ending.
You get those guys talking about music, and I have this thing with some of my musician friends where I feel like they aren't necessarily as big of fans of music as they are musicians. Does that? So they really like playing and performing, and I have plenty of friends that also are really into music also, but I'm a huge fan, and anytime I can kind of geek out about different artists that I like, and you get them talking about Need to Breathe or Smashing Pumpkins, or you got a full conversation for the rest of the night, and they're just so into it, and you can just tell. But anyway, back to Friday. So they generously let me open this show, which I never really know what I'm walking into over there, and I did check the guy out, and he had one song which was pretty good on Spotify, and I was like, okay, this is good. And then I get there and I do a sound check, and I'm like, oh, this is really good. Like, it's a different animal than I had previously thought. And so then I'm like, I got a little nervous, honestly, because I hear him, and I'm like, oh man, like, this guy is great. I shouldn't even really be on the stage. And he did a couple songs with that Rachel Neal, which you played with. Which
we'll talk about her a little bit. Give her some shout outs.
Yeah, well, I mean,
she's fantastic.
So after he sound checked and he did awesome, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be a fun, really good show, and got a little nervous. She came up and did her sound check with him because they just randomly were gonna perform a couple songs together, and I was like, shit, she's awesome too. And then so I was nervous. I did my, it's a different animal too, a little bit. I don't know if I'm just cutting myself too much slack, but when you're doing your own sound from the board across the room, and you don't have anybody adjusting anything, it is a different thing a little bit. But so I do my sound check, I get it sounding all right. Ryan Wolf comes, and he wanted to check because I just got this little Bose speaker thing, and I was using it.
Not a sponsor.
Right. But he wanted to check it out, so I let him play it, and then I was like, okay, well, I'll just turn on the mains too, and he'll play a few songs. It'll be cool. So he plays his songs and whatever, and we go hang out, and I'll come back at some point. I think you were with us at that point, and so then it's like time to start, and so I go up there, everything's unmuted and how it should be. Strum the guitar, no sound. I hear the voice, I look at the Bose, it's on, I make sure the guitar's on, check the cable, shake it a little bit. I'm like, fuck. So I run all the way back to the soundboards, make sure everything's on again, run back, still not working. I'm like, must be the battery. So I run, I have another guitar with the battery, and I'm like taking it out, and Wolf's sitting there, and he's like, did you check the volume? And I was like,
it's always like,
it's something so stupid, and I'm the sound guy that night.
Thing.
Like I should have checked that first. I'm not blaming him, but I had everything set perfectly, so I didn't think he would really touch the volume, I guess. But if I would have just glanced down, it's just as much my fault as anybody else's.
Yeah.
So then I'm all flustered, and then I play my set, and I'm just like, I'm having a very tough time with my breath control, and it's like, also there's another element where there's like a lot of people from out of state, which is pretty crazy. And they told me about the rock boat, and Michael's been talking about it pretty much since I met him, and it didn't really register. And then he told me, I'd like you to do your one-man band because the rock boat crew will be there, and they'll really like that. But then the week of, I was thinking about it, and I was like, I really shouldn't, because it's just too much stuff, and this isn't a show that's about me. It's about the headliner. I'm just get privileged to open, so I'll just play acoustic, plug and play. No, I used one vocal effects pedal, which I definitely 100% regret using, and
really,
the Bose for the first time. So I was trying too many new things all at once. I was nervous. I was shaky. I mean, I got through the set. It just did not feel like my best, but there was a decent crowd there, and they were all really big music fans. So it's like you want those people to see you in your best, and I just did not feel like it was my best. So I felt pretty depressed about it pretty much for the rest of the night. And then Bradley goes up there, and he just murders. Like he was so good, and he was the thing that was my favorite about his performance is how much he was into every song. He was locked in. Like there was not like he didn't phone it in for one song. He didn't just like half-ass anything. It just felt high energy, like for just a guy on a guitar. And then I get the privilege of kind of being back there with the volumes and the really we had everything set. So I'm just really messing with some effects.
You could have sabotaged him at any time.
I could have, but that's not my vibe.
That's not your vibe.
Especially with, not that I would really ever do that. I might.
You had the power, though.
I did.
You had the power.
But the worst I would ever do is be lazy and maybe a little haphazard about it. But I would never actively try.
No, dude, you're the best sound guy I've ever had do my sound.
Right.
You're the only sound guy I've ever had do my sound.
Besides you, so I might be slightly better.
No, you're still better than me.
A couple more shows, you'll be right there. But anyway, so essentially I'm just adding some extra verb and parts, and sometimes I'll boost his vocal when I feel like he needs it, pull the guitar back, pull the guitar up. Maybe if he does the really picky thing, it kind of takes the volume out and puts. So I gotta, when you're doing sound the right way, and for doing sound in that room, it's usually just a guitar and vocals. So there's not. He did a little piano too, but I don't really have to worry about 18 different channels or anything. It's really easy to make somebody sound good. And then if you get really dialed in, now if I knew the songs, I could have been even better, but I didn't. So you're just kind of feeling out. But it almost, if you get really locked in with it, you almost feel like you're performing with them to an extent, because you're like, okay, here comes that part where here comes the belty part. Let's crank the verb, maybe pull the vocals back, maybe do the opposite at time. And it's just like you're trying to dial in, but you're also not trying to do too much, which is a fine line where you're just like, all my adjustments are pretty much micro adjustments. And but anyway, so I was really dialed in for his show, and he just really his pitch was so good. And then he got Rachel on stage, and they played, and it was great. And I was feeling pretty bad about the whole thing, but great at this. It's like it was both staggering and inspiring at the same time. And I talked to him for a little bit outside. Nicest guy. Super generous and nice enough to talk to me about stuff. But
that's like always the one thing I hate about those shows is that they've got to go. They've got to leave.
Right.
And you're like, these are the coolest, most down to earth, like want to talk music with you people, and like they're creating fantastic stuff. And it's like, oh, but you're going to Virginia for the next part of your tour. Got it. I'm staying here in Pontiac.
He had to get some sleep. I could tell he was a little, because he put everything into the performance. So, and then that rock boat people were such
fantastic
a good audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the audience every time there is a fantastic audience, but you
Even
you throw true, like, I live for live music
yeah.
people, fans in there, and then it just amplifies it. So he was even saying, he's like, stop clapping this much for me, because I never had like audiences like
I think as a performer too, it's like you build off their energy, and they build off your, and then you escalate everything. So you get this kind of magnified, amplified version of yourself where you feel like Superman sometimes.
And it's a cool feeling.
Yeah, very, very cool. And so I watched the videos back that they live streamed. It wasn't as terrible as I thought. My performance wasn't as terrible as I thought.
You did a great job.
It wasn't my best, and that's what I gauge everything by. Every performance I want it to be my best. So if I get 85%, which is still okay, it's just you want that, especially in that specific night, that specific audience. I really would have liked to be more at 100, but anyway. So
the people that I talked to that were there throughout the weekend who continued to go to stuff, they really liked what you had to offer.
Well,
so
it's nice.
A lot of people were saying a lot of good things. I like what you had.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's very, very, very kind. But I know. I'm the same way. Yeah. You're just more of a critic of yourself because you know what you know your full true potential of what you could do. So even if it's just like a little bit less, you just don't.
Like one note in the second song. Can blow the rest of your night. Of the feeling about your night.
I think I've gotten over that. Where it's like I'll hit bad notes, but I used to be like it'd be 10 songs later and still be like kind of you can see it in my face, like where
Thankfully I haven't done that yet.
But you get to a point where it's just like you let it go. I mean you're like shit, and then that's it.
Oh, it's already happened.
Well, there's nothing you can do.
Guess I can continue the rest of my set.
Right. And I think after you watch enough video of yourself and that thing that like really, really bugged you that was like in that second song, you watch it and you're like, it was like a millisecond. It's like it was
you
like
you can't even notice it in the video.
Right. Well, there's that, but there are times where it's like I can clearly tell that my note was off, sometimes it's longer, sometimes, but it's still quick. And in the scheme of things, the audience isn't.
It's not going to be the thing that they remember.
Yeah, they're not hanging on to that.
Even in the next verse, they're still going to.
They've already forgotten. Yeah. And so it can really stifle your performance if you get really that's for later. That's for after you film your set and you watch it back and I could have done this better, but in the performance you really just got to throw that stuff away.
Yeah.
And I do struggle with that at times, but it is something I think I've gotten better. So anyway, I mean just shout out to Bradley Rhodes. He absolutely killed it.
Superstar. I went up and talked to him after the show a little bit, and like the only question I wanted to ask him was like, did you have classical music, like musical theater training?
He did.
And he was like, I mean, I did some theater.
Yeah, he told us
in school.
One of the stories he told was about doing some plays.
And he was like, but I didn't like train in that. And I was like, some of those notes are very like musical theater, belt forward types, and like how he projected, how he formed them.
And he had a pretty low voice, so he was really good at projecting his lower voice.
He was really good, and
the songs were great too. I mean, he was a good songwriter. It wasn't just like an amazing performance. And when you have both those things, I mean,
he's a good performer too.
But I noticed his performance like way before I noticed his songs were good. Once I started really listening to the lyrics, I was like, oh, these are great also. But like the energy of what he was putting out, even if I didn't like the songs, I would have liked them. But then I also liked the songs too, when you kind of dug into them a little bit.
Yeah.
And anyway, so that was a great night. But again, it was a little, I was a little down, but also like super inspired at the same time. And it was just great to see. And so let's get back to the weekend. Sorry, I completely derailed. But
that's fine. Yeah, that's totally fine.
I did want to get into that at some point, just because we were both there, and that was a pretty epic show.
Yeah.
So you played in the morning. We already talked about that one, and that was.
I played in the morning at Acres Inn on Saturday, right. So 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. That was I did 2 hours. Really, everything I did was 2 hours this weekend. But that one was fun. I was using a mic stand, or I was using a music stand that broke and knocked into my mic stand and threw my mic into the floor, and I earned my first,
Mic dent.
and so I got that stripe and picked it back up, and I was right in the middle of cover of Delilah by Tom Jones, and like right towards the end when I could really get up
You
there
felt like
too.
you were completely warmed up and rocking it.
And I was doing it, and I was right in the middle, and it fell over, and I kept on singing because I wanted to finish it, but I didn't have the lyrics in front of me, and I was like, well, it is what it is. Like we just said, it already happened.
Yeah, you just gotta let it go.
And I hadn't taken a break yet, and I was like, picked it up. I was like, I'm just gonna take a break real quick.
Right.
Had some water, went back to it, but it was fine. That one was fun. It was outside. It was nice. It was a good day for it. Quite a few people too. So that was cool.
Always helps, unless you sound like shit.
Yeah.
But if you're sounding good, having people there is definitely a bonus.
Well, and that was like when I was doing morning shows and stuff, when I was doing things in the morning in college, it was all the way I sang in college because I was classically trained in college and had a classical music professor, and that's just what we stuck to.
Right.
And I sing different now, but I still have that training
base.
And that bass. So I was
you
like,
can really tell just from a audience perspective when I watch you sing that, like,
cool.
You have a lot of control and a lot of power, and it's awesome.
Oh, thanks, man.
Okay, so then show number 2.
I was at Wolf Creek Golf Course for a fundraiser that was 1 to 3 on Saturday as well. That one was good. I was outside on the patio. I was facing tee number 1 and tee off number 10, so I was strategically planning the starts of my songs in the middle of people's backswings. So that's what you get for putting me outside. Sorry.
Right.
The fundraiser was happening inside, so there wasn't a whole lot of people outside. I had a couple college or high school friends that were there that had been wanting to come see me perform, so that was cool.
Nice, yeah.
Being able, it was like for probably an hour and 45 minutes, it was just the concert, the two of them. Which was fine because right. They're gonna give you the best answers that you're looking for because they're the only ones that are there paying attention to you.
Right. Because there could be a crowd full of people, but still only 2 people kind of paying attention.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes I was just I had a show Saturday and it wasn't a huge crowd, but it was a very attentive crowd, and I kept telling the people, it's like I'd rather play for a room of 3 people that are super into it than 100 people that don't really care too much. Right? Yeah. So I mean, just that much, it's like we're doing it together at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so the fundraiser, and then you went to
the fundraiser, and then I went to
Live Again first, right?
We went back to the 202 because Beth Bombara was playing, and my friend Rachel, who I was talking about earlier, she opened for her.
Right, which is why she was in town, which is why she did the song.
Well, she was in town. She had a 3 o'clock spot at the stage.
Right.
Downtown.
So they doubled it up.
So she had some really good playing time, and I guess now's a good time to introduce Rachel to the people.
Right.
Rachel's a friend of mine from college, and in college we weren't really friends. I mean, we were friends, but like we never hung out. We weren't in the same group or anything. I wasn't doing music. She wasn't doing music. It was just school.
Right.
Same with her husband. Knew him. That was about it. But then I started writing and putting my music out there like last August, and around the same time she, was like, dude, this is really good. You should do this.
Right.
And I was like, oh, cool. Like, I don't talk to her. That's awesome, that someone's noticing this.
She was inspired enough to even say something.
Yeah.
And, there's definitely a difference between people who are inspired to say something negative, because that's
easier to do.
And I mean, when you look at comments and stuff, a lot of the times it's all negative.
Mm-hmm.
Every so often. So for somebody to actually go out of their way and say something positive is always
that was
a little gas in the tank for sure.
And it was like, oh, cool. People are seeing what I'm putting out there at least, and I was like, that's cool. And then I started. As I was posting things and scrolling, she was popping up with things that she was writing, and I was like, damn, she's really good too.
Right.
And so we just started gassing each other up. Fire emoji, fire emoji, fire emoji.
That's
keep it up. So it was really good. And then she and I just started talking more about music, and we've been in the process of writing a song for a couple months now.
Nice.
That we've put on a shelf for a little while because it started to make both of us a little mad. But I was like, we've got a music festival coming up here, and I think you've got enough in that, you know, we could work with, and if you want to come down, we'd love to have you. She's from Wisconsin. So her and her husband drove like 5 hours down. She brought her mom and dad too. So and she killed it.
Yeah,
she killed it.
I only saw her. I did her sound check. Well, she played
Friday
with Bradley,
night, yeah.
and then I did try to set it up for them for the next day for her. And
I didn't get to her.
She was pretty good.
I didn't get to her 3:00 show downtown, but everybody said that she did a really good job. I wish I could have been there, but she was when she opened. She was really, really good. I mean, she has a female country music sound that is like already on the radio.
Right.
It's like her husband's like, it's butter. And like that's all you can really say. Like, it's butter. It's just so good. She has that lower range, but can hop right into that higher stuff, and get right into that head voice, and just really like be light and flowy, but at times can really just be, you know.
So then, who is she opening for at Alive again? I can't.
Beth Bombara.
Beth Bombara.
Mm-hmm. She's from St. Louis. Beth is. Yeah.
And that show was pretty good as well.
Oh yeah, Beth is fantastic. She's got a great voice, super unique voice. It doesn't match the person, and I love voices like
Right.
that. People say I have a voice, you know, it doesn't match the person. But she's a fantastic guitar player. She's playing her harmonica too. And a lot of times you see guitar player with a harmonica and it's not matching, or, you know, something
Right.
like that. And it's like, this is already recorded. She's lip syncing, playing. She's faking all of this. Like, it just matched up really good. Yeah, she was really good. She's a great performer. Good storyteller too. Even, you know, introducing her songs and talking about her songs. Here's why I wrote this. And
that's always awesome, I think, to see, especially as a performer, because sometimes playing in bars and stuff, you kind of forget that, you know, giving a little bit of context to a song,
Mm-hmm.
and especially in a situation where it's a listening room and people are there, you know, it really can make that song stick with people a little bit more. I always find I'm not super good at it, but I do have some lead-ins and stuff where I, you know, have something I usually say, or something, you know, obviously it's not scripted, but it's like, you know, I tell a little story or something like that. But Bradley was really good at that too, just kind of giving you some context.
Mm-hmm.
And I always feel like that can bring that song to the next level for sure.
Especially if it's your originals nobody's heard. You know, they want to at least know what was in your mind as to what sparked you to write it.
Yeah.
At least, you know.
And I mean, I don't think every song needs to have necessarily a 5-minute lead up, but it's nice to do a few minutes here and there, just to kind of.
It gives you a little break too.
Right, gives you a breather, especially if you kind of have an idea of what you're going to say.
I mean, it's a good time filler. I mean, if you're doing that and you got a 2-hour set, but you're doing that a good amount of time, you could shave 5-6 minutes off of just
a whole set,
speaking.
Right? Well, it gets weird when you're in bars, because it's like
nobody's paying attention.
Sometimes you know, you'll have good nights where people are into it, and even your originals, they're not just like loving the covers only, where, you know, you can give a little bump to the song, a little extra context, just say a few things. But, you know, sometimes you think you have the crowd a little bit, and then you do that and you're like, oh, they're not paying attention really at all, or you lose them because you don't have the energy that just keeps going. Because, you know, if it's a bar crowd and they're you know, halfway paying attention, you know, you can lose them just as quick as you can get them, you know. But anyway, so you did Acres Inn, a fundraiser at Wolf Creek Golf, went to the show at Live again.
Yeah, we went to the show, and then at 10 o'clock that night we went to PJ's Pub in Pontiac as well, and Rachel and I closed the bar down. we did a joint show, so she took 30 minutes, I took 30 minutes. We did that for 3 hours.
Sometimes that's kind of the best.
It was awesome. Like, she was doing covers and stuff that, you know, she didn't do earlier in the day, and I kept my same set list the entire weekend. I wasn't going to try to attack another song and screw myself up.
Well, and, you know, doing the same, like, it probably wasn't exact same, but similar set list, you know, those songs will be extra dialed in, and then you just, you know, the next time you might switch a few around, you might add a couple new, and it just gets more dialed in every time you do it, until you're to 5 hours, and then you can start to be like, well, you know, what do I want to play tonight?
Yeah.
What is this crowd going to be into? And you get to have a little bit more freedom with the choices. But you know, you're on the road there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You're getting close.
Yeah.
You said you did your first 3 hour the other night, right?
I did my first 3 hour. I did have to recycle some songs in that one, but
okay.
I did do my first 3 hour about a month ago, I think, and I was worried that I just wasn't gonna be able to get through it. Like, I wouldn't be able to hit certain notes at the 2 hour 30-minute mark, but I got through it. I was fine. The only thing that was bothering me is that I just didn't have enough that I was confident in for 3 hours.
Yeah.
But you know, the good thing was people were coming and going, and when I had to recycle, it was a fresh audience.
Yeah. And some nights too, it's like, it's good if it's like, maybe if it's a 3 hour set, like it's not a super attentive crowd, so you can try some of those ones that you've like, you kind of think you could get through, but they aren't going to be your best. And I think doing that live is like, it's like practice on steroids. Like, the next time you go to play that song, you're like, because you're so dialed in when you're actually performing that, like when you go back to the song, you're just like way tighter with it. You still might need to grow with it a little bit, but you're usually, if you do that a couple times live, it's like, you know, worth 20 practices of the song.
I did, at that 3 hour show, for the first time, I didn't even practice it, but I had heard it before, and I was like, it seems simple.
Right.
So it was CCR Midnight Special.
Nice.
And
like me some CCR.
And I was like, that's a cool song. I was like, I think I could do that. And I did it. And now it's one of my favorite covers to play. It's one of my favorite songs to sing. And that night at the bar, like, everybody was clapping along, people were dancing, people were singing along, and that was the first time that I'd played something that everybody was like singing back with me at, and it was just a super cool feeling. But it, like, the bar was awesome. A lot of the group from the concert came over to the bar, and we just continued to party, which is what happens after every gathering that happens at the house.
Right.
And yeah, we closed the place down. Rachel did her originals, some covers. I did my originals, some covers.
I used to be in a band with a good friend, Blair. You actually met him the other night.
Blair, cool dude.
Yeah.
Really great guitar player.
Yeah, and, you know, we were in the band together, and we both sang, so it was like, you know, it'd usually go, I do one, he does one, or I do two, he does two, or, you know, sometimes we'd get three in. I don't know, just depending on what the band was feeling. But, like, I always feel like those, and the same goes, I think, if you're doing like a tag team set, like you're talking about, where you're kind of trading off, is like, you build off of each other, and if they kill it, it's like, you enjoy it, so that makes you kind of just in a better mood, but also you're like, I gotta step up. I gotta step up. It's like a healthy competition. You're not really trying to win, but you're trying, you feel like you have to step your game up. You know, if they set a bar that's a little higher than what you're putting out, you know, you can dial yourself in to be even tighter, and you know, that can escalate and escalate and escalate, and that can be a lot of fun, I think. And it's just a nice change. Like, it's not like, sometimes I think when I play at a bar for like a 4-hour set, it's like, who's gonna listen to me sing for 4 hours? Like, probably nobody's gonna make it all the way through, but you know, because people have other stuff to do. That's a lot.
That's such a long time. That's such a long time.
And it's just my same voice. I'm not singing with anybody else. It's just me solo for 4 hours. Like, who, by the end of it, they got to be like a little sick of me to some extent. But, you know, I try to change up the set and, you know, make it more interesting. But, you know, I still only have one voice, you know. It's just get those same frequencies just hitting you. At a certain point, it has to be like the staff anyway, the people that are there.
Well, then you start getting in your own head, and you're like, I'm annoying.
Well,
I'm annoying. They don't want to listen to me.
I already just assumed that. But anyway, so then the next morning you had a show too. So,
well, at the bar, Rachel and I did a duet together, which was cool because we'd been talking about it, but we didn't get to practice it. We did "Save Me" by Jelly Roll and Lainey Wilson.
Oh, cool.
And
been hearing that guy's name for a long time, but I don't really know many of his songs.
If you haven't listened to that one, listen to that one.
Well, I think I might have seen you do it at the show the next day, maybe.
I did it. Yeah, I did. That
I think
I included that in all of my sets. I think that was a video. There was a video of that on Facebook.
Yeah, I think that's the one I saw. And I'm like, I do recognize this song, but
but she and I jumped right into it. And it was just like, it was cool because it's like, yeah, I'm getting to do a duet right now, you know, for the first time in front of some people. I'm getting to share the stage, but I get to do it with a buddy who's also freaking a rock star, talented, you know, singer-songwriter. So it was super cool to do that, and great reception. Everybody just was awesome there. It was just awesome there.
I do think that just having Michael and Steve in the crowd at any show just bumps up the, because they're gonna be paying attention, and they're gonna, you know, and
they're not afraid to like, if you're there, you know, drinking and watching TV, they're gonna be like, "Hey, are you listening to this guy?
Right.
You gotta listen to these people."
Yeah, and they'll you know, just having people that cheer sometimes in the crowd, because I've played for, you know, I've had all mix of anything you can ever think of as far as a crowd, and sometimes, you know, people are not really paying attention, and you know, you might get a clap or two, but if you have at least a few people that are like doing that, people will start to slowly turn and be like, what is going on? Like, it seems like this must be good if people are clapping, and then that just escalates. Everybody builds everybody's attention kind of to be more kind of about the show instead of whatever's on the TV. But,
there's a lot of just like interesting things that happened this weekend, like firsts. You know, first duet. There was a lady who was at the guest house for Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. She stayed all 3 nights, and they call her Boat Mom. She was the boat mom on the rock boat.
Was that the one I saw Elvis 3 times? I had a really long conversation. She was going over all the bands she saw with me. So Elvis 3 times, Paul McCartney, George Harrison.
Yeah, she worked at like
Pink Floyd.
She worked at the Civic Center in Philly.
Right.
And
it was just,
worked
she
there,
had a
and
whole
then
list.
They'd be like, "Here, you want these front row tickets?" And she's like, "I got to see Elvis 3 times," and I was like, "You don't even know what that dude means to me, and you just like out here just like, oh, I saw him 3 times," and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That's wild to me.
She said she got a hug from Jerry Garcia and got all his chest hair in his mouth.
He called her, he's like, Kellogg!
Yeah.
You know Jerry Garcia?
But yeah, it was one of those things where, like, it was at the end of the night, I was doing sound for, I think you had just maybe got done playing so if you count that show, that's even a 6 show, right?
Yeah.
But because you played a little, I mean, it wasn't a huge set, but it was probably 5 songs or something. But after that, and I dialed in Rachel for the next day, she just started kind of talking to me, and I was like, this is crazy. She's seen more music than I will probably ever see in my whole life. All these iconic bands.
Her and her daughter came from Florida.
Yeah, that's so
for
wild.
The weekend to come to Pontiac. She came from Florida to Pontiac, and they're like, they follow Need to Breathe. They're on all the rock boats. Like, they're the people that I was talking about. They're like live for live music. And they were the greatest supporters you could ask for.
Yeah, you want those people to, you know, see you and perceive you in a good light, because they're gonna be cheerleaders. You know, they're gonna give you that. Like your friend Rachel, she gave you a little extra gas in the tank, as I was saying earlier. Yeah. So having that type of fan or fan, you know, whatever.
But she didn't know like much of an Elvis fan that I am. And so she told me that she's like, I saw him 3 times, and I was like, I'm gonna find you later in the weekend and we're gonna talk about this.
We're gonna have a long conversation.
But she had told me, she was like, I heard you play Run Around Sue, and I was like, yeah, I play Run Around. She's like, that's my favorite song. And so we were at the bar and I was playing it, and she immediately was like the only one. She shot right up and started dancing around to the song and everything. But it was cool. But I was playing I do a Elvis medley, and I go right from the Elvis medley into one of my songs called Hometown Song,
which is a good one. I like that one a lot.
Thank you. And I was blinded by sweat in the middle of the second song for the medley. And so I was just eyes closed, feeling around for the mic with my lips, because I could tell that I was getting farther away from it. And they threw me a rag at the end, and I was like, oh, wiped it down. And she came right up to me and she was like, I need that. And I was like, are you serious? And she's like, yeah. So I gave it to her, and I didn't know if she was like joking about it or anything. And so Sunday morning comes, and she comes to the coffee show, and my mom like went up to her and she was like, do you still have that? And she was like, oh yeah, I put it in my purse right away. So I went up and talked to her after before they left yesterday, and I was like, you still have that? And she was like, yeah. And she was like, I didn't get one from Elvis, so I'm going to get one from you. And she still didn't know how much of an Elvis fan I was. And I was like...
She had said that she almost got one of the nights. It was like
some old lady like ripped it out from her.
She said that she wanted to hurt her physically.
I believe she said I was going to punch her in the throat. That's what she said to me.
She said to me that it was the first time she's ever wanted to punch somebody.
Yeah.
So. But anyway,
I would have for an Elvis scar.
Right. So yeah, so let's get into that. That's like your big influence, right? Elvis.
Yeah.
So what got you started with the? I mean, I'm a big Elvis fan also. I do an Elvis medley also, and I kind of him and Johnny Cash. I mean, I'm more of a Johnny Cash guy if you really break it down. But I really appreciate Elvis and everything he did, and his life is fascinating to me, just like Johnny Cash's. And I think maybe Johnny was just introduced to me at the right time. Yeah. And I think I only, everybody knows who Elvis is.
I think Johnny's a little more relatable to people than Elvis Presley.
And there's the length of his, I mean, he was still alive when I was in high school. Yeah. He's still he put Hurt out, like, I think that was like maybe the year he died or the year before.
It was like 2002.
Right. So, I mean. Yeah. He had a very long career, and I think I probably saw Walk the Line, at the right age. Time. And then, like, I started watching documentaries, started reading books about him, and
finding those live performances, the Johnny Cash show, just that
the variety show,
the media that's out there, that the endless. That's some of the stuff that like got me into Elvis, like the story, like the Tupelo, Mississippi, was living on the other side of the tracks, lived in a shotgun shack that his dad built, and his dad goes to prison for forging a check to pay for something for the family, just like a
those little details,
a poor childhood, like American dream type of story, and just because he wanted to record some songs for his mom, essentially, is how he started.
How could people find your music?
I am on Facebook at Aaron Newsome Music. I'm not on Spotify yet. I'm not on Apple Music yet, but
we're working on that.
We are actively working on some of that. So I'm hoping by the beginning of 2025, if not a little bit sooner, to have at least one
single, if not
a couple songs. I've got a good amount.
Yeah, Instagram too.
Instagram, I believe Aaron Newsome Music as well. I'm not too sure on that.
Just look up Aaron Newsome, you'll find him. But Facebook, Instagram right now, but it's ever expanding.
TikTok too. Aaron Newsome Music, I believe.
Awesome. So check all that out. Thanks again. I appreciate anybody who takes the time to listen as always, and we will talk to you next time. Have a good one. Bye.